Hello to everybody once more. We are starting the next panel. Practically very difficult topic, how to put together, migration, how to put together with solidarity and, institutions, global institutions and health organization, the global health. And so it's mission impossible, but we will try to do our best. And I have a very competent panel on these topics. We have an Angeli Achrekar, Deputy Executive Director of UNAIDS, Paolo Rondelli, the former Captain Regent of Republic of San Marino, Patricia Scotland, former Commonwealth Secretary General, member of House of Lords of the United Kingdom, and we have Rosen Plevneliev, who is a former president of Bulgaria. We are missing some people, from Malta, and we are missing some other people, who are competent on migration. But I think if you look at the migration as a phenomena, as a process, it is going on since many thousand years. Migration was present in every age of human history. And it was created by the climate, by the way. The Ice Age created migration, and we don't know what it was, this migration, but it was there, and war refugees were ever present, and religious refugees were ever present, economic migrants looking for better life, for better jobs and better salaries were always present, and political refugees were always present. I may look at from today's point of view, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. We have the same driving factors for migration, and added to that, we have increasing mobility. Even in a normal, let's say, pattern of peaceful living globally, the mobility is significantly increased if we compare to the previous times. The second point is that we all call it globalization. Not only economic globalization, it's also political globalization and even social globalization. With different speeds, but all they are present. And again, I'll repeat it. We have religious refugees, political refugees, war refugees, economic migrants, and climate migrants because of natural disasters created by the climate change, and also let's say, because really the geographical situation in different geographical points changes because of climate change. This is reality, we have internally replaced persons, we have, migrants going to the neighboring countries, and sometimes very peaceful, like between Venezuela and Colombia. A couple million people move back and forwards, and not creating too much, consequences, because every migration creates consequences, social consequences. Somebody has to take care of them, that social burden, economic consequences, finding jobs, competition for the jobs, cultural consequences, because the local host nation communities are very concerned about strangers coming in and how they will influence their way of life, But also, let's say, we have to understand that if we go from the refugee camp to integrate these people into definite host societies, you need, two big things: education. Because if the kids are out of school, we will have a lot of problems, and healthcare, because everybody needs healthcare, So a lot of let's say, questions to be answered. But what's different from the previous ages? That's a criminalization of the migration. That means that, especially from Africa through Mediterranean, the migration is organized and ruled not by governments, but by criminal authorities. Criminal authorities are there. And the second point is weaponization of migration. That means, like in Belarus or Russia case, the migrants are used in a hybrid war attacks on the neighboring countries, creating a lot of pressure on the societies, and also on the security institutions of each country. So this is much more different, but we want to answer some questions. Do we need some global framework for healthcare, at least on a very general level, on general principles? Do we need some, let's say, patterns how to better integrate these refugees? Do our capacities of host nations are enough? And if not enough, what to do and how to share this burden between, let's say, the neighbors, or let's say like in EU, it's a shared burden of refugees. So a lot of questions, and all these processes create short-term consequences and long-term consequences. Short-term, it means, you have a problem immediately. You have this refugee camp, and you have to integrate these people somehow into societies. Long-term, how these migrants will integrate or not integrate in the local host nation societies, because they may integrate, and that's one pattern, and they may not, and create like an islands of difficult cultures or difficult social patterns in a host nation. And if it goes into the long run, we have a long-term problems or consequences. The task of this panel is just to at least find some questions, not answers. What to do, and how do we see from different points and different experiences a migration process and solidarity of the future global community. And I will change a little bit, let's say, the sequence of our speakers, because I would like to start with Patricia Scotland, representing, British Commonwealth and having experience, and Commonwealth has experience at least a couple hundred years. So what were the good, let's say, examples of migration, and what were not so good examples of migration, and what's the presence of today? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I didn't know whether I should say thank you, because I was hoping to act as sweeper at the end after everyone else has spoken. But I'm really happy to start, because I think the Commonwealth has, as a result of its history and its complexity, quite an interesting opportunity to be an example of what may be possible. Most of you will know that the Commonwealth is made up now of 56 countries. It's the largest number we have ever had. And it represents 5 different regions, encompassing those who are the strongest, the largest countries, to the very smallest. Our largest member, as you know, is India, with 1.3, 1.4 billion. And one of our smallest is Nauru, with about 11,000. And we have everything in between. So it's a very unique constellation of countries, and it acts like a petri dish, because we have every religion, every race, every geographical location, and the sun doesn't set on the Commonwealth. And that means we have all the problems in relation to migration and in relation to health. And what I was going to do is actually think practically about how the Commonwealth has addressed some of these issues. And the real strength is that they share, in the main, a common history, a common rule of law, common parliamentary structure, similar institutions. So if they can come together to come up with a solution, there's a high degree of interoperability. If it works for one of us, it may work for many. And I thought that I would talk about what we did in relation to COVID-19, because the Commonwealth meets together ministerially every year when it comes to health. And in March of 2019, the health ministers met on the margins of the World Health Assembly to discuss what the future would look like. And what we determined was that there would be a pandemic. We'd looked at what had happened in 1918, 1919, and what was happening today, and that's what we believed. And we said that it was likely to be in the next 5 years. We didn't know that it was going to be in December of that year. And so we were looking at the things that we could do to respond. One of the things they identified was that there would be a difficulty in relation to procurement, because there was a disparity between our countries. We also understood that there was a disparity between the access to information and knowledge, and how would we address those issues. So we started to create the instruments that we would need. But what happened in COVID, I think, was the greatest opportunity for us to understand the need for multilateralism, because this wicked pandemic had its tentacles in every single home, and there was no barrier between us. COVID had no respecter of boundaries, didn't care if you were rich, poor, black, white, Republican or Democrat, Labour or Tory. It was coming for all of us, and therefore we had to have a common response. And what we did in order to do that is we pooled knowledge, expertise. We also had 100 accredited organizations, which included doctors, nurses, pharmacists. And when there was lockdown, we worked across borders, and it was one of the most dramatic and fulfilling demonstration of real solidarity and real opportunity. So I'll just give you a quick outline of the response that the Commonwealth made. We had prepared for lockdown. I have to tell you, everyone said that I was crazy and of course, you know that I am, in 2016, because I thought we needed a platform in which we could work together virtually. And so by 2018, we'd created a platform for Commonwealth countries with Teams and Blue Jeans. And as a result, we were able in 2020 to have the first health ministers meeting of all the 54 countries to determine what our collective response was going to be to COVID. And every single country committed itself to share all their knowledge, all their expertise, and we determined that we would start on creating a joint platform, because most of our small countries had no access to information and had no access to vaccines. And so we created a COVID-19 data dashboard, pooling the information from all our other multi-agency partners so that smaller countries could understand more easily what they were facing. We also created a Commonwealth COVID-19 analysis page where we would push out information regularly, and a COVID-19 vaccination tracker and a technical working group. This was the practical manifestations of what we could do. And as a result, we were able to share vaccines, produce support for all our member states. But migration had started long before that because of the climate disasters. People were moving. We had Bangladesh, who were responsible for huge millions of people. And therefore, we started to create models as to what would work and how we could facilitate. And the exciting thing was, during that terrible time, we strengthened our partnership with every single agency. We worked hand in glove with the WHO, hand in glove with the WTO, the UNCTAD, all of our partners, together with the African Union, the Pacific Island Forum, the European Union, all of those. And during that period, we really demonstrated what practical collaboration could do. And we understood that none of us were able to deliver what we needed for any of our countries unless we worked together. And that working together was an extraordinary experience, but it was focused on outcome, on practical, implementable processes and procedures which would work. And what I'll say to you is that it was not dependent on money, because my organization that I then led had very little money. As many of you will know, I was a minister in the United Kingdom government from 1999 to 2010. I've been used to managing budgets of billions, first as the foreign minister, then as deputy Lord Chancellor for 2 years, then 4 years as deputy Home Secretary, and then 3 years as the Attorney General of the United Kingdom. The organization which I then went to run had a budget of 42 million. 42 million for 56 countries. So we're talking about peanuts. But it isn't about money, it's about collaboration, cooperation, and building an alliance, which means that for every single dollar that was spent by any of our 56 was only spent once. If one of us had spent it, it meant that nobody else had to do it. And that collaboration and communication was extraordinary. And I'll leave you, because I know we haven't got very many minutes, with just one example of what happened. One of the last things I did before I left was there was a huge issue on the oncological services across the Commonwealth, which you'll know in many of our countries are very poor. And the Lancet Commission asked me to come to lunch. I have to tell you, it's a very dangerous thing to ask me to come to lunch, because they invited many of the oncologists from across the Commonwealth to come and work with us. And it seemed that they had the power, if they so chose, to work together to make a real difference. Now, at the end of the lunch, I suggested to them that the Lancet Commission, we should create a Lancet Commission for oncology across the Commonwealth. And they asked me, when should we do this? And I said, today. And within 10 months, we launched the Commonwealth Commission on Oncology and pooled more than $100 million worth of practical assistance, which was shared with everyone. And the cost to my organization was that we were the facilitator, the enabler, and we made it happen. And what I will say is that one of the most powerful things I think our organization had was humility. And you won't see, and I was just talking to someone outside, and one of the problems is you will see none of this written. Why? Because we were the facilitators, but the success was owned by our member states. And that's why it worked. And so just to say a word about the last session, I think it's really important, and maybe some people say women might be slightly better at doing this. It's really important that we not be burdened by our own ego, that it has to be put in the bin, because what matters is results and working together. And I can certainly say that if multilateralists determine to really work together, we can do it. And we can change the world, and it doesn't need to have the billions that other people speak of, but it does need determination and a willingness to act, and to act together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very inspiring start for our panel. And let's now move to the UNAIDS point of view and experience, and give the floor to Angeli and Claire.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and excellencies and distinguished colleagues. It's a real honor to be with you today. And I really first want to thank NGIC for such an incredible forum with dialogue that happens like this. I'll offer some reflections on another pandemic, the HIV/AIDS pandemic, and really highlight how multilateralism and the world coming together 30 years ago has been one of the most extraordinary examples of success that we all will ever know. You'll recall that in the mid to late 1990s, the world was ravaged by HIV and AIDS. At that time, there were countries, and again, diseases know no borders. This virus didn't care if you were, as was said earlier, same with COVID, this virus didn't care if you were rich or poor, if you were Christian or Muslim, if you were gay or straight. It didn't care if you were young or old. At the height of the HIV/AIDS pandemic, death and despair was on everyone's doorstep. There were some countries where 1 in 3 people were infected, 1 in 2 people were infected, 1 in 4 people were dying. Adult populations in many countries were being decimated, where orphans were left to be raised, orphan children were left to be raised by grandparents at that time, because swaths of the adult population, mothers, fathers, teachers, doctors, were being killed by AIDS. This was not just a health issue, it was an economic issue, it was a security issue, it was an issue that was impacting all countries at the time. And to put it into context with COVID, because COVID is more recent and it's a pandemic that we've all experienced recently, but 40 million people have died, over 40 million people from AIDS. 7 million people have died from COVID globally. So this pandemic was an urgent call for an unprecedented response 30 years ago. And the world responded in ways that we've never seen before. The world, multilateralism, every country came in with political will, with commitment, with the drive to work together to address this pandemic. We saw the entire UN system do something different. At that time, Kofi Annan was leading the United Nations. UNAIDS was created 30 years ago, actually January 1996, UNAIDS was created. It still is the only UN entity that is a joint program of 11 different UN agencies, everyone from UNESCO to the World Bank, to WHO, to ILO, to UNICEF, different sectors coming together to work on a common mission to end AIDS, to support countries to end AIDS. It was the first time 30 years ago that all of society came together. We're talking about government officials, member states, civil society, private sector, faith-based organizations, the farthest leaning left organizations and the farthest leaning right organizations, all coming together. Where else do you have a space where you have LGBTQI plus organizations working hand in hand with very conservative religious organizations? We had this in the HIV response because we all needed to work together, collaborate in ways we've never collaborated before to tackle this epidemic. We had parliamentarians, Republicans and Democrats, come together from the US, from all around the world to address this response. This was also the first time health was addressed on the UN Security Council agenda. Because as I said earlier, it was not just a health issue, it was an issue of security. And what transpired since is nothing short of extraordinary. The HIV response has been one of the greatest success stories of our lifetime. And there are so many lessons that I'll come to that we've drawn and brought into the COVID response as well. The success, we still don't have a vaccine or cure in the HIV response, but countries have controlled the epidemic, their national epidemics. That's almost unheard of. That is incredible results. We've seen AIDS deaths decrease by 70% since their peak. New infections plummet by over 60% since their peak. This is a huge success story. We've seen life expectancy in many of those countries where I said 1 in 2 people were infected or died. We've seen life expectancy increase by 17, 19, 20 years. These are now people contributing in their societies again. So what we've learned in the HIV response with multilateralism as the solution is that it does, as Anna said in the previous panel, it requires courage and coordination and humility that was just described. of the world coming together in ways that it has never come before. It was the world coming together to focus on people, ordinary, everyday people, because everyone was some way or in some manner impacted by HIV and AIDS. There are a lot of lessons that we learned that I said that we drew into the COVID-19 response globally as well. The shared platforms that was described earlier, for example, data sharing platforms were really critical. Those same surveillance systems and data sharing platforms that were in place for the HIV response in many of these countries were also leveraged for the COVID response. The same healthcare workers, community health workers that exist, community systems that exist for the HIV response were leveraged for the HIV response or the COVID response. The same laboratories and laboratory technologies that were in place for the HIV response were leveraged for the COVID-19 response. The key was really focusing in a coordinated way on impact and results. Now, the HIV response, we're still not over. There are still over 9 million people that are infected with HIV or that are still in need of treatment. Still 1.3 million people newly infected every year. So the job is not yet done. But I will say that of all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, this is the target that is focused that actually will be achieved by 2030. That's because this response has been so successful by all countries of the world. So we have in the HIV response, countries have, communities have continuously iterated and evolved the response. That's been one of the successes, is the agility, evolving the response to be more people-centered, to try different innovations, to include community. We have community on our board. We're a UN structure that doesn't exist anywhere else. So where we are right now in the HIV response, and perhaps this is a lesson for all of us for the future, is we're really focused on how can HIV and AIDS be integrated into broader health systems? How can we support countries to sustain self-reliant, inclusive, multi-sectoral HIV responses? And the way to do that is really by integrating it into broader health systems, but also into broader development systems as well. So perhaps I'll just stop there. I wanted to share just some lessons from another pandemic where multilateralism really truly was the solution and still is the solution to drive this kind of successful impact that the world has experienced. Thanks.
Thank you very much. You see, the key word is multilateralism. Already 2 speakers. It's the most important thing in solidarity and in global healthcare. Now I give the floor to Paolo Rondelli.
Thank you very much. It's quite difficult for me to speak after Angeli because I'm one of the witnesses of that period. I'm claimed to be the first openly gay of state in the world when I was elected, and I'm an activist in these issues still now. And I touched that period really. I faced that period because I had friends, men and women, that died of AIDS. I have still friends that were infected and now are undetectable. And now they have kids, they have families, but due to the progress of healthcare, science, and the construction of a network of protection to themselves, that is something that is needed in pandemic. So after this personal moment, I'm here to give you an experience. I'm representing a country that is one of the smallest in the world, the Republic of San Marino, that is just 61 square kilometers, stuck in Europe, in the middle of an envelope country that is Italy. So in the middle of the European Union, that experienced something terrible during the pandemic. We were not part of the European Union. We are not part of the European Union. We are negotiating an agreement. We already negotiated an agreement. We are just waiting for the signature with the European Union to be more integrated within the European Union. But at that stage, we were not absolutely part of any network. What did happen? We were the top scorer in debt during the beginning of the pandemic. The percentage of people that was dying in my country was terrible. Each one of us has someone that died by COVID-19 in that period, because due to the small amount of population, 35,000, and due to our sociality, the infection spread immediately. Some students coming back from the universities in Italy infected their grandparents. The grandparents went to the clubs playing cards with others, and they infected others. So in the first weeks, we had no space for nothing in the hospital. We had to close the border and claim for vaccines. The negotiation with EU started, and they assigned a small contingent to start with the vaccination campaign. But that contingent never arrived in San Marino. It was stuck close to Rome by Italy, and so we never received vaccine. So I'm coming from diplomacy. I was elected member of the parliament, and I swear in 28 December 2019, just few weeks before the pandemic. And I was elected as chairperson of the Foreign Affairs Committee and Migration Committee. So I had to start with the colleagues to face the problem, to face the issue. And only one country offered us help, and that was Russia, with Sputnik vaccination. And we had difficulties to introduce the vaccines in our country. Serbia helped for that. United Kingdom, I have to thank the Parliament of the United Kingdom, because I was also chairperson of the all-party parliamentary friendship group with the United Kingdom during that period. Some member of the Parliament, of the UK Parliament, helped us in crowdfunding for this very bad period. And we started with a vaccination with Sputnik. We were lucky. The vaccination was absolutely effective, and the measures we took were so strong that in few weeks, the casualty rate decreased so much. We were part of some medical tests, blood tests. I offered my blood for the science too. And after Sputnik, the minimum level of antibodies were 50. My blood had 25,000 anticorps as rate after Sputnik vaccination. Then European Union and Italy mainly realized that would be better to integrate also small countries in the European system. So they realized that COVID was not just a welfare issue, it was a political issue and a geopolitical issue, and that was important. This was our first experience. Then we had a second experience that was connected to migrations. When the Russia-Ukraine crisis started, due to the fact that traditionally we had some groups of immigrants coming from Russia and coming from Ukraine, and that are workers in our country, we decided to, let's say, focusing on our neutral state, to try to find solutions. So we decided to guest refugees. And at a peak point, we always consider the size of our country and the number of inhabitants. We are 35,000 inhabitants. In the peak period, we guessed 450 refugees from Ukraine. That means more than 1% of the population. Think if each country do that during a crisis. And we integrated these refugees, asking for, claiming for social cohesion. So we asked to the population who was available to guest some of them. Most of them were women and kids escaping from Russia with their husbands, brothers, fathers, stuck in Ukraine or in the contended territories as soldiers, so they can't give any help to them. So we guessed these people. A lot of families started to guest them and to offer them assistance. And also the state offered them some social housing, some locations where to stay, and we gave them access to education for kids. We offered online courses, language classes, integrations, support of additional teachers for the kids. Welfare, because they had full access to healthcare. Possibility to work, for who was able to work. So to a special permit to work. And also a small amount of money that was depending by the number of members of the family guested. The small amount of money will finish next month after 3 years. Most of them came back or reached some others from some relatives in other countries, but some of them are still there. 85 yesterday, the statistics told me. And we will do the same with Palestinian refugees. The parliament just approved a law to guest a small amount of Palestinian refugees with the same model, usually kids and women, preferably, that are able to arrive to Europe via humanitarian corridors. So we are able to guest them with the same logic: education, welfare, access to work, social housing. And it's not because we are a rich country, it's because we are keeping the tradition that was since World War II. During World War II, San Marino was the only neutral enclave on the Gothic line. And we guested 100,000 Italian citizens escaping from the war. Everywhere, galleries, tent houses, everywhere, for 1.5 years. And in the 70s, we guested refugees escaping from Spain, from the fascist government. We guested refugees escaping from Chile, from the Pinochet dictators. So it's a way to keep our tradition of solidarity, a small country that could offer a model for big countries. And what is my final reflection on this? That each one of us, it doesn't matter the size of the country, and it doesn't matter how rich we are, we can offer some assistance to others, to migrants, to not only economical migrants, I mean, migrants coming from territories in crisis, from war. I was my signature was the first signature on the bill that was approved with 100% of vote for my parliament to guest also minors, unaccompanied minors arriving via humanitarian corridors from the refugees camp in Greece or somewhere, Lesbo or other part of the country. Because it's necessary, it's necessary in my personal opinion to create a multilateral system, a kind of network of different countries and different communities that it doesn't matter the color of the skin, it doesn't matter the religion, it doesn't matter from where they are coming, but we have to help. The last reflection is on the role of WHO. During the crisis, we had to strengthen the relations with the World Health Organization during the COVID pandemic, I mean, just because we were in the middle of a kind of extinction of our country due to the huge number of casualties. So also in that sense, it's important that international organizations keep in their mind that small countries are important as big countries when there's a pandemic, when there's a crisis, and they can offer help, but they could need also help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was very glad to hear the same experience, about the same experience we have in my country, you know. If the refugee numbers are according to your capacity, then you can do it in a very well way. Let's say, for example, you know, at the beginning, we had all the same financial support from the government, and 3 years later, there was no any more necessity to financially help the refugees because they were integrated, and they were very interesting processes that they are moving back and forwards. In the wintertime, they come to Latvia because of definite winter situation in Ukraine, and in summertime, they move back. And the other trend is very interesting, you know. Very often they come from Poland, Czech Republic, and Germany. And the question is why? They are much more prosperous. Germany is much more prosperous than Latvia because they feel much more welcomed. And that means, you know, it's much easier for them to integrate and to get the jobs and to teach their kids. So I'm very happy to hear that we have this practically the same experience, but it's only in a situation when you have adequate capacity. What to do when you have an adequate capacity? That means the number of refugees is much higher you can, you know, take care of. Then there is a problem. And how to tackle the problem. So now I give the floor to a politician, you know, the President of Bulgaria, Rosen. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the chance to speak actually to such an important panel. It's just a look at the first word is human. So it's about humanism. Who do we are? What do we stand for as a human beings? Peace, human rights, rule of law. Do we stand for that, and how do we defend that? My first 25 years I was living in communism. It wasn't a human regime. I was not free. I didn't know what is banana, what is Coca-Cola. I was not free to travel. I didn't have any human rights. And when communism collapsed, because of two great leaders I admire, I read their books. I'm always grateful. I should say 3 leaders. One of them was American President Ronald Reagan. The other one is Her Majesty, I call her like that, the Prime Minister of the UK, Madam Thatcher. And of course, Pope John Paul II. They changed my life by basically ruining the empire of evil and changing my life totally and completely. So now we're living in my country, in Bulgaria, since 31 years, being very proud. Democracy, not the best in the world, but functioning, working, being very proud a member of European Union, which is the best and the only project for peace in the world. That is a lesson learned from human history. Speaking about humanism, there is no way for me to agree with presidents that are bringing us back to the history of Europe back in the 19th centuries. Back then, there were 5 great powers. They were debating, discussing, I give you this, you give me that. The result of this was countless wars and 1/3 of the European population being killed in the wars. Today, what we see is this transition period, which I'm talking about that since even I was an acting president, my speech in the European Parliament back in 2016, we are in a transition period from one world order, which is going to be destroyed very efficiently by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the President of Russia, Mr. Putin, and probably very many others, to another world order, which is still not there, in a new world, new balance, 21st century. Again, what do we need to do in this transition period? I would like to put very simply 2 principles that will guide us and that will help us. And the one is, I should call coalition of the willing. And the other one is, I should call it, to be globally strong, you need to be locally strong. You need to understand. So you can centralize, but it is very important to decentralize in order to be successful. Ordinary people need to see that success. On the first coalition of the willing, let me be very clear on where we are today. We have a president of the United States who is saying rule of law is not for me. It's not for me. I don't care about rule of law. Well, I disagree. And I hope we can have a coalition of the willing that will be strengthening rule of law in a new world. I listened to the chief of cabinet of the President of the United States, who is saying, today's world, the more important is power. It's just about power. Well, I totally disagree. And that is why we need a coalition of the willing who understand that, well, it should be different. A rule of power is not, that is guiding us to something we can see for the future of our children. We were there in Europe, especially in the 19th centuries, even back to the 16th century, of something which was called the Westphalia Pact. We see a lot of heads of state and government today very passionately talking about migration, but they don't talk to us. They don't bring solution. They talk to their own propaganda machines. They talk to their own voters. But that's not the solution to all of us. As human beings, trying to find a solution to lessons learned, peace. You want to preach peace? You want to be a peacemaker? Do you understand that the easiest thing to do is to bomb? The easiest thing to do is to divide a nation. It is very difficult to reconcile. It is very difficult to bring not just peace as a frozen conflict, absence of war, not just peace as a kind of agreement, but a lasting peace, a sustainable peace, which, if we learn from history, we could give a lot of examples, positives and negatives, and that is only linked to human rights. Peace is only possible when you care about human rights. Peace is only possible when you understand that rich and poor, big and small, strong and not strong, all of them should and have to contribute to rules and institutions that guarantee those rules for peace. Peace is not possible when you say Greenland. On the next day, you look at Canada. On the day after, you look at Cuba. peace is not possible when you just give to the world a very simple choice. You saying Greenland has to be mine because Chinese ships, because of Russian ships, never happened. In the last 10 years of human history, there wasn't a single Russian ship around Greenland. And there wasn't a single Chinese ship around Greenland. Never. Is that a human to lie? I don't agree to that. International responsible behavior should be based not on lies, on respect to rule of law, values, and this and that. Because of that, we need a coalition of the willing. The same for migration, the same for health. We have a Secretary of Health of the United States basically saying there is no scientific evidence. Well, what I learned from history back to 5,000 years ago, you just have two approaches. The one is based on scientific evidence, and the other one is the populistic approach. It was a Chinese virus. There was no virus. I was in the United States back in 2019. I was in the airport in Boston. I love the United States. I'm passionate about the United States, but not that one. When I was sitting in the just the lounge in the airport in Boston, and the President of the United States in his first mandate, President Trump, was telling that is a Chinese virus. No scientific evidence about that. And the Europeans brought it to America, and I'm giving 48 hours for the Europeans. And basically, he closed all the airports. There was a huge chaos in the airport in Boston. I was there. People were asking a very simple question. What do? I stay, I leave. The Europeans, we will close all the airports. The Europeans, are they a convenient excuse? Like migrants? Probably for a different plan, for the world or for your own country. That is why we need a coalition of the willing. And my second very basic principle is to be globally strong, to be locally strong. We need to understand that, again, success is measured if you see it in Africa, if you see it in Asia, if you see it everywhere. Success is not measured if you say, I wouldn't rest until there is a single Mercedes S-Class on the Fifth Avenue. Is that a success? And I wonder, a lot of European politicians, where President Trump basically is saying, Europeans, I'm coming to for your working places, and they support him. I mean, they pray for him. He's saying, I'm coming for your working places. I want to deindustrialize Europe. And you say, well, that's a great guy. We support him. No. We need to be locally strong in Europe. In order to be globally strong, we have to have a coalition of the billion who believe in free trade, who believe that tariffs never ever in human history have done anything for the competitiveness of any country. Tariffs kill competitiveness in the long term. Just look at the American steel industry back in the 70s, and you will understand tariffs never work. That's why we need a courageous world of coalition of the willing, a European Union, UK, Canada, all together, China, coming and building that multipolar, whatever call it, a new world where actually, if those who believe in isolationism, fine. If those who believe in tariffs, fine. But the others do not believe into this. If those who believe migration could be fought on your streets just by propaganda and killing innocent mothers, well, we don't believe to that. So we need to have a global solution. Speaking on migration, you need to have it as a priority to be globally strong. But you need to have local solutions on the ground. So people on the ground in Africa see hope, better life, they stay there. Syria and many others. And there is a hope. We need to work hard in this transition period. And last but not sure, it depends on every one of us. It is a decentralized approach. We were talking, for example, about having a global green bank, about funding green project. I don't believe in this. You can set it as a priority. But if you have so many small, big, medium, whatever green funds, leave them, decentralize them, leave them in the countries, leave them to private sector, support them as a global priority. And this is exactly, for example, what happens as a great success in many other countries, because the green revolution is happening faster than we imagine. It is everywhere. And it is the same, I believe, also in the understanding of many other people in the world, that rule of law is above us and will stay with us as a lesson learned from history. That's the only prerequisite for solving any big issue on the planet. Thank you, Mr. President.
I wasn't intending to take the floor, but as migration is discussed, I should explain what Turkey, my country, has done throughout the years. I think Turkey has been a safe haven for migrants from other countries. 500 years ago, the Sephardic Jews came to Ottoman territories. They are still with us. After the First World War, the Mensheviks, escaping from the Bolsheviks, escaped to Turkey. And then came and Trotsky was many years in Turkey. And then came the Nazi escaping Germans. We looked after them. And of course, in the 80s, there was, in the Bulgarian communist time, 500,000 Turkish citizens of, Bulgarian citizens of Turkish origin came to Turkey. We looked after them. Some of them returned back to Bulgaria. Some of them are still with us. When Saddam Hussein bombed, used chemical weapons in northern Iraq, we received 500,000 Iraqi people, and we looked after them for 1 or 2 years. And of course, the latest flow was the Syrian refugees coming not only to Turkey but throughout the world. We received 4.5 million Syrians to Turkey. Because the Turkish-Syrian border was decided according to the train line, south of the train line was Syria and north of the line was Turkey. So the same families, because they lived in the northern part of the city, became Turkish citizens, and south became Syrian citizens. So when this flow of migration became, some of them joined their families, but most of them went to camps. I think the best camps has been in Turkey, and they were given the best treatment. I just wanted to share with you some of the how to manage. I mean, out of the refugees, 700,000 children needed education. So we gave them Syrian curriculum in Turkish primary schools. In the afternoons, it was Syrian curriculum by Syrian teachers, and morning it was Turkish curriculum by Turkish teachers. So we wanted them to go, when they go back to Syria, not to lose their connections to their own country. They were allowed to go to the hospitals without paying anything. And they were given right to 10 people working in a company. One was Syrian, and not less than minimum wage was paid to them. The European Union promised $3 billion plus $3 billion. The first $3 billion came partially. And I learned that when you receive these money, on the way, 25% goes to the intermediary institutions. So you don't receive the whole money. But still, it was a bonus to the Turkish budget. It helped a lot. So we still have these people with us. And of course, we never closed our doors, thinking that Turkey is a safe haven for these people. We have more Albanians in Turkey as Turkish citizens than in Albania, 2 million. More Bosnians in Turkey than Bosnia-Herzegovina, and there are Turkish citizens, 5 million. So we have 10 million from the Caucasus. So we are happy to have different colors, different cultures, which has a connection with our country. And And this, I just wanted to share with you the situation as it's relevant to the subject.
Thank you very much. Edva, the floor goes to you.
Thank you very much. I just was listening very carefully to Patricia and to Paolo, and I have something in common with them both. First of all, I'm working with refugees like an artist, and especially in a small country like Andorra, that you know about it. We have a special program. I have a special program with the artists, with the refugees, where I'm looking for refugees coming from Ukraine, from the Middle East, Palestine, and we have a special program in Rome at the University or Temple University Rome every 2 years. And I can tell you that it's a big success because we are helping these refugees artists to integrate to the Italian life. They're living in Italy, and I'm mixing them with artists from Italy. So there is a wonderful language and a wonderful approach, and they are learning so much from the life of the Italian artist. They are working together. And I was very happy because they continue the relation afterwards. So it's a very big success through art, the integration of refugees. And I'm continuing it next May, another time at Temple University. So I think this is important. It's through art, but we can have it through other fields. We have to help the refugees and to really to teach them how to integrate in the country where they are. So just, we're talking about San Marino and Andorra. I think the 60,000 citizens difference, but it's still a small country that's helping a lot.
Thank you. So we are coming to the end of this panel. What we have learned, hearing to each other's experiences, that it's impossible to stop migration. It will happen because the people have motivation to move. And if the people have motivation, you cannot stop them. So what we have to do, we have to tackle the problems created by migration. Let's say we have heard good examples, how we can help. And again, the same things: education, healthcare, and social burden to the societies because they need the social assistance too. That means healthcare as a first priority. So, but at the end, I would like to also to focus on that multilateralism was the key word. In many, let's say, contexts, that multilateralism works. It's a good example of how it works in a social, let's say, environment. But I would like to ask my panelists the last question. We were talking about engaging different institutions, international and local institutions, and my question is, who must take the lead? Who must take the lead? And I'll use the spelling of the word who, W-H-O. So that's very interesting. We get I hope we get the answers. Who, W-H-O. So please, your comments, Patricia.
I think the answer is all of us. Certainly in my experience, I have understood that the only way of successfully addressing problems is to do it holistically, that you need a multidisciplinary team to respond, a multifaceted team, and the way in which I think we have found success is when we do a real needs-based analysis, and then we do an assessment as to what we all have, and that we have the same gap analysis, and then we decide how to fill it. Certainly on health, I found it was imperative to work with all the international organizations, particularly the WHO. One of the things, just to talk about small states, that I really hope we'll do, if God forbid we have another pandemic, is that we will look after the small first. Because there are only 42 small states in our world, which are about 20 million people. We were distributing 20 million doses of the medication every day. It would have taken 1 day to literally cover every small state. And if you think about the graphic example we've just had of a small state locked in a most fabulously wealthy country, Italy, but deprived of vaccines to their detriment, that was the same picture, because for most small states, they were too small. When it came to getting the vaccines, it wasn't worth anyone's while. So I think we have to look at them together and think about how we procure and how we prevent, because if we'd done that to the small states, we would have had safe spaces to go to. So it would have been in our interests to close it down. So I hope next time around we'll show solidarity and we will protect the smallest first.
Thank you. The message is take care of small at first. Angeli?
Yeah, thank you. I would add that I agree with the all. And I'll share the experience of the HIV response, which before Kofi Annan created, or the Security Council created UNAIDS, which represents multiple UN agencies from different sectors, including WHO, but not only WHO. The HIV response was led out of WHO, but it moved out of WHO because health is not only one sector, it's multiple sectors: development, finance, justice, social welfare, planning, gender, etc. And we've seen that has been one of the successes. In the US government, for example, when the President Bush at the time launched the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, that is housed and still is in the State Department because it convenes health, defense, multiple sectors. At the country level, various countries, these countries that have succeeded in the response, it's because heads of state and prime minister level convene multiple ministries, not just health, but multiple ministries to respond. So health, I think, has to be approached in a multi-sectoral response across gender, defense, health, but finance, all the rest. And so it's not just in the health space. Thanks.
Thank you. Paolo?
Well, I'm completely in line with Patricia, and I can also tell you that small countries can offer a different point of view and a kind of experimental pitch, because we are small communities, so we know each other. And as I told you during my intervention, we follow the path of the virus. A couple of students re-entered the country. They infected their grandparents. The grandparents went to play cards. The community of the club was infected, and so on. And another infection started from a funeral of one of these members of the club, kissing each other. So these were the two paths where the infection spread out in the country. The mechanisms, probably for WHO, was the perfect observation laboratory. In few days, we immediately reconstruct all the path. So that's the message. Small countries can be very effective in this multilateral approach. And let me conclude with one small episode in the past during the HLM campaign infection. San Marino was at the center of a smuggling episode. Italy welfare was ruled by a deeply conservative Christian minister that refused to finance all the campaigns that were oriented to something that could affect sexuality. So sexuality couldn't be touched during the campaign. So also the distribution of condoms couldn't be financed by the Minister of Welfare during that stage. So obviously it's prescribed as a crime. So I can tell you, we organized a smuggling with Thailand, and 1 million of condoms reached San Marino, and from San Marino was spread all over in Italy. So we protected 1 million of people with that action. That was the beginning of an undercover campaign, not financed by the Minister of Health.
So,
So don't follow only the rules.
follow the humanity principles, and that's very important. Rosen?
Thank you. So even a small country can change. The two magic questions you're asking, who and how. On who, of course, somebody has to prioritize. WHO, WMO, whatever it is, you need to put it as a priority on a global level. There is a very simple exercise that says you want to solve a problem, you need to point at the problem, so prioritize it. And that is obligation to those institutions. But on the other side is, okay, you prioritize, but you bring results to people. So you have to efficiently work. That's, again, bringing me to the situation we have today, coalition of the willing. You get together, you believe in what you do, you can deliver, and you can make history, even a small country like San Marino. The second point about how, to me, it's very clear. It's a scientific-based approach, not the populistic approach, no matter migration, health, whatever that is, peace, too. Is a matter of populism, which is not good, should be matter of. And here I come to the greatest philosopher, I believe, in all the times, basically for me, who also speaking about scientific approach, I should add one more sentence, scientific approach based on lessons learned from history. And here I would always remember Max Weber, a great philosopher back in the 19th century, explaining to all his students and everybody in Europe, whatever problem you have in the family, your personal problem between governments, the explanation what it happens and why it happens is only with a very simple sentence, because nations, people, and leaders do not learn from history. They just don't. So if we learn from history, we should act in a different way today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will try to make a synthesis of all what we heard. And in one sentence, it would be, to practice multilateralism, we need multilateral institutions who cooperate globally.